Hey everyone, I recently went through the xAPI cohort and I created an interactive video that sends over custom xAPI statements, and I wanted to walk you through how I built it and some of the things that I did with the xAPI data in order to get some custom reporting. And I'm going to walk you through all of that. If you haven't heard of xAPI cohort to begin with, if you go to xapicohort.com or just Google search xAPI cohort, it is a 12-week experience that allows you to work on projects with other people and to contribute, even if you're a beginner, you've just started out with xAPI, or you've been working with xAPI for a while and you just want to practice or create some project that you've been thinking about as well. It helps you get that experience, and they have a lot of different live sessions that they go through. So it's a great experience. I've gone through it a couple of times. This one, I wanted to create interactive video, and it's something that I've always kind of thought about. I have videos on how to create interactive videos, and you can check those out. Basically, I wanted to create an experience where you present the learner with a scenario, and then depending on the choices that they make, they'll see different types of videos. And then I wanted to add on xAPI statement. So one of the xAPI cohort participants, Cecilia Fernandez, was gracious enough to create the scenario, and then gracious enough to create the videos as well. So shout out to her for creating those. And then I created the interaction inside a storyline and then added the xAPI statements. And I wanted to take this in a different approach. I wanted to think about the different steps, and those steps of okay, what is happening when the learner clicks on this, or what information do I want to track and send over to the xAPI statement. So I'm going to walk you through the experience, and I'll talk to you how I built it inside of Storyline and where I added the xAPI statements and how I thought through that process. So let's first of all go into the experience, and I uploaded the CMI5 package to SCORM Cloud. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Launch here. Now it's going to present me with the scenario. Now I'm thinking of this as a manager. So let's go ahead and hit play.
I'd like to start working from home 2 days a week.
So the request comes in, I'd like to start working from home 2 days a week. How do I respond as a new manager to this type of request? It presents me with two different choices, and then depending on the choice that I make, it'll take me down different paths. So I can either choose submit a formal request, or you need to be in the office. So submit a formal request is kind of the, okay, let's just go ahead and try this out and allow you to do that. But we need you in the office. I'm pushing back a little bit. So let's see what happens here.
I understand, but at this time, we need you in the office. Is there a specific reason you're requesting this change?
Now we're going to continue and get the different choice.
I have a long commute and think this change will improve my work-life balance.
Just simple little reactions, simple different things that the learner is responding to. So I'm going to click on Avoid Commute.
I understand your concern. Have you considered adjusting your commuting hours to avoid rush hour?
Then I'm going to hit Continue.
I still prefer working from home. What's the next step?
Now these are just stock videos and generated audio, AI generated audio as well. And we're just taking the learner down different scenarios. So I'm going to choose this option.
Great. I'll send you the telecommuting request form. Fill it out and we'll go from there.
Okay, so I've completed the scenario. Let's go ahead and close out that scenario. Now it says that I've passed, and so it was set up in CMI5 to have a completion once they get to a certain page. On top of all of these Storyline default xAPI statements, it's sending over additional statements. So if I click on View Registration Statement History, you can see as I start to scroll down here, Jeff Batt viewed choice 1, Jeff Batt answered choice 1, and so forth. But then there's some additional, and these are on top of the actual Storyline results here. We send over Jeff Batt watched the recording, but also Jeff Batt answered the video, and here's the answer. The answer was not set up as a quiz question. This was actually sent over in addition, and I customized the code because the question was a layer. It wasn't actually a page, and so I couldn't send it over. With SCORM, that's kind of a restriction, and you need to have a question be a page in order to format it to send over the question. Well, with xAPI, you don't need to do that. You can actually have layers be quiz questions and send that over. So as I started to, this is kind of the end result, and I'm going to show you a dashboard that I created inside of Veracity, but this is the data that's starting to come in. So how did I think through that? As I started to look at the different steps, what I started to do is I started to map this out using a tool called Freeform, which is similar to Miro or similar to other types of whiteboard type of tools. And so you can see here, here's the first request. In the request, usually when you're working with xAPI statements, you're wanting to find what event happened, what experience, and it could be the question, it could be like they watched something, that they interacted with something. That's the event. And so I identified that the event is the question is asked of the manager. That is the event. The video stopped and the question was asked. And then what data is happening? What's some information that I may need to use inside of my xAPI statement? So this helps me start to sleuth out exactly where these statements need to go. And so you can see here, work from home request and 2 days a week. And I grabbed whatever relevant information. What is the employee actually asking for? Because that could be relevant when I'm sending over the xAPI statement. And then I have two different choices. And the first choice is to approve, and it kind of goes to this completion scenario. Or the second choice is to deny and push back a little bit. And then what event is happening? Well, the request was denied and more information is requested. And the data is the reason for denial is the employee is needed in the office. So that's important information that we can include inside of the xAPI statement. So as you can see, hopefully if you start to map this out, you can see areas where you can start to add these xAPI statements. Not just what comes out of the box inside of Storyline, but information that you want to know and what type of data is there. Just so much you can do here and so much you can track. So you can see I did it for each step. And what I did after that is I started to add the verb and then the object and the results and then any context, additional data that might be needed in there. So I started to identify, okay, this is going to be reached, this is going to be answered, and so forth, and started to plot out those different variables. And that helped me identify and map out what needs to happen once I get into Storyline. So let's go ahead and jump into Storyline here. And inside of Storyline, let's go into the story view. So you can see scene 1. This is where the question happens, and then the choice pops up as a layer. You can see a layer here, and then I have some animation that actually pops up. Now, option B is the response that we get, and then we continue to the end of the scenario. And then option A is the response that we get, and then we continue to the next question. That's how I'm branching here. And if I go back into the story view, you can see here that this option will jump to scene 2, but this option is going to go ahead and jump to the next one. And so then we go to the next one, and it branches out to those two different options, and then one of them will either jump onto scene 2 or the other one will jump onto this conclusion. And that's really how I branched it out, is just those continue buttons that would then branch to a specific page depending on what the user has chosen. Now let's go in and start identifying some of these xAPI statements. So you can see right here, the first xAPI statement is a custom xAPI. And if you've never sent over an xAPI statement, check out my other videos. I walk you through everything you need to know, A to Z, on how to send over a statement in general. This is how you kind of go in and manipulate and adjust the statement. That's the first one. Let me come into this one right here. It's going to show the layer, but before it shows the layer, when the timeline ends, we're going to show this watched request. And so if I click on that option here, it's going to show me the custom xAPI statement. So you can see here, I can give it a name, which I named it watch request 1. So they watched the first request. Then I use the verb watched. You don't have to stick with what comes out of the box inside of Storyline. They only have about 12 different verbs in there, and you can actually use whatever verbs you want to from different resources, which I have videos on that as well. But you can see here, you need both the watched and you need the ID as well. Now, inside of the object, what we're doing is we're just grabbing the slide title, which is request 1. And then right after that, I'm adding on video. It's going to say request 1 video, basically, when Jeff Bat watched request 1 video is how we're kind of combining that. Because xAPI statements come in 3 different key parts: the actor, the verb, and then the object. And the object describes what the actor is doing or has done, basically. So that's why the events are important, because we need to be able to pick up on those events to know when to send over the xAPI statements. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel here. And you can see that's the event right here. When the timeline ends, it's going to go ahead and send that over. Now I have this sending the xAPI statement before it's showing the layer. And that's important too, because if you jump onto the next page before the xAPI statement is sent, that's never going to run. It's never going to send over that xAPI statement. Before you leave something or you hide a layer or do something like that, you send over the statement or any type of relevant data before then. All right, so now let's go into choice here, and you can see that we're sending over an xAPI statement that they viewed choice 1. I'm going to double click on that, and it's going to happen when the user actually reaches this cue point right here, that they viewed the choice. And that's really all that I want to know. Did they actually view it, or did they jump on, or did they skip ahead in the menu or something like that? Did they actually view the choice? So you can see here, it will happen when the timeline reaches this cue point. Now, if I go into this choice right here, it's a pretty simple, just viewed ID, and then choice 1, I added that on there, and the ID gets pulled automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then we're going to add 1 to the number of steps, because I want to be able to track how many steps and how many average steps is the learner taking in order to complete this scenario. Are most of them getting through all 3 steps, or only a few getting through all 3, or just most of them getting through 2 steps or 1 step? I want to know that information. So I'm keeping track of that inside of a variable. And then at some point, I'm going to send over what that variable is as an xAPI statement, and we'll come back to that. Now, that is something called an extension, something that doesn't really fit into the other parts of xAPI statements, but data that we can add to it that could be relevant, and we can create reports based off of that. I'm going to come back to that, but I'm going to click on cancel here. And then you can see right here, I do this when they choose option A. I send over the statement first before I jump onto the slide. That is key. The order of triggers is key. Now I'm going to go ahead and double click on this right here where it says send over xAPI statement. We're going to go into choice 1. Now this one is a little bit more built out here because it is a question. We do have to have some additional data. So I added on a description right here. For some reason, Storyline doesn't add the description. I wish it did, but you can add to it. Just because the data is not there in the initial trigger doesn't mean that you can't actually add something to it. So it is important to know what that JSON is, and I have several videos on how to build out that JSON, but this is, and I'm going to cover these in additional videos as well, so stay tuned to my channel. But you can see here, I'm sending over a typed, which is a CMI interaction. This is how it is tracked as what type of interaction. And the type of interaction is passed over. And you can see right here, interaction type is passed over as choice. And then correct response, submit a formal request, because this is a choice. It's basically choice A or choice B in this case. And you can see here, question 1 choice is the ID that I'm given. And then the results, submit a formal request and I would like to review. That's what they chose here. And then I'm also sending over the duration as the elapsed time. How much time have they spent on the page before this xAPI statement got sent over? I want to know that. That's important information that I can see. How much time are really learners spending on the question? If you're not tracking that, you're not able to report on that. So that's why, to me, it's like, why are we still using SCORM? Because we can track so much more with xAPI and really get so much more data. And then based off of that data, this big data, these results, we can then make choices and altercations and make our learning better, which makes me really excited about that kind of stuff. Let's come back in here, and I'm doing the same thing with choice B as well. And I kind of repeat the same things on each of these questions, so I'm not going to go over each of them, but you can see here, this is choice B basically, and I send over different results. Now, I don't think I send over a statement here. I do set the state to continue to normal, so that will show up. And I do have this when the timeline ends. So I think the next one, we just continue to repeat send over watch statement there. And then on the layer, we send over the choices. Now, the next thing I do besides that kind of repeated thing is once we get into the scenario complete. Inside of the scenario complete, we have send over xAPI finished scenario. Now, if I double click on this, and I also have a course complete, which because I'm doing CMI 5, it will actually send over a completion for me, and I don't have to send over a completed statement or anything like that. But I am sending over a finished scenario. So I can see here, there is my finished ID. And then if I come into here, this is a little bit different because this is where I'm providing the name, manager simulations training, and number of steps. Remember, I was keeping track of the steps, which no matter how many steps they go, once they reach this slide, it's going to send over the number of steps, how many steps it took for them to get to this end. and I want to have that as part of the record. And so I'm going to put it inside of the statement here. And so you can see that I add a description. And then this is an extensions, which I'm going to talk about in a different video. Extensions allow us to add additional content to this xAPI statement, which could then be tracked and used as part of the reporting inside of our learning record store. So this extension, you have to give it an ID, which I'm giving it a learningdojo.ninja, probably your organization's URL, and you could do /extensions or /information or /xAPI, anything like that. And then inside of these brackets, I'm calling this one number of steps, because that's important when I'm creating my reports. I want to identify the number of steps, and this is passing over the variable. Anytime you see like a percentage sign at the beginning or the end of a name here, that means it's a variable data that we're pulling from Storyline. So you could track anything that you want, and then inside of an xAPI statement, send that data over to the Learning Record Store and track on that data. So many possibilities there, and I get so excited about that, about the possibilities of what you can do there. So that is what I'm doing. One other important thing, notice that it's pulling as the ID, the project ID. You actually set that. Let me go into publish here, and it's important to know where to set this. But if you go into reporting and tracking here, and then you go into the Learning Record Store, this right up here is the activity ID. Usually it's your organization's URL followed by whatever type of interaction this is. And so in this case, it's Manager Interactive Video. That allows me in my reporting to find the data and kind of filter out the data a lot quicker. So that's cool and all, but let's actually go over to Veracity, because inside of SCORM Cloud, it doesn't really allow us to create reports. So we can see the feed that comes in, but we can't really see the reports that come in. So inside of Veracity, this is a custom report that I built. So you can see here, we have request 1, request videos watched. Request 1 is the most commonly visited one. I'm using the visited, I believe, and the watched. I'm using the watched statement there. And so that's how I'm keeping track of request 1, 2, and 3. And then scenario completions, I'm sending over, or I'm keeping track of how many completions have happened in general. Doesn't matter how many steps it took at this point, but just the completions. And then the average steps to completion. This is where that number of steps come into play, and I'm able to filter down to the number of steps extension that I created. And again, watch that extensions video for more details on that. So spent time in course, that elapsed time, how much time did they actually spend in the course? So I can create a report on that. And then choice 1, choice 2, choice 3. And you can see here, here's choice 1 and the percentage of people that are choosing this option. And if you hover over it, it'll actually tell me what the option is and the percentage of people that are choosing the other option. So out of those two different choices, I'm able to see and create a report to see how many people are choosing this choice, how many people are choosing that choice, and know what my organization is kind of thinking here, which is amazing. And then how much time. I'm always curious on how much time people are spending on questions, or is it taking them a long time to figure out a question? And maybe I thought the question was pretty simple, and if it's taking long, then maybe it's not, or something. So you can see average time spent on question 2, average time spent on question 3. And if you come into this, I'm going to click on this little edit icon. And if I click on edit here, this is where I established the parameters for this. And so if I come into here, what I'm doing is I'm filtering out the results by response, and then I'm doing it from the data source of the statements that are coming into play. And then I'm grabbing the total counts, and then I'm saying how many slices do I want to show, which is basically how many different sections am I going to show, and it's going to show 10. And then this is where I filter it down to that choice 1 question. I don't want all choices, I only want that choice 1 question, which at the beginning of this has that learningdojo.ninja manager interactive video, and then /choice 1, which if I go back into choice 1, you can see here, if I go into choice 1 here, and then I go into the answered, let me double click on that statement, go into here. That is this ID right here, this choice 1. That learningdojo.ninja /manager interactive thing is this variable right here. That's how I'm able to pull that in. And then you can see object ID is this choice 1, and I'm able to filter that out. That's really all that it took there. Now to get the extension is a little bit different. So you can see right here, average object extensions, learningdojo.ninja extensions.number of steps. And it's literally, you don't have to memorize that. It's literally like a drop down box. If you at least know what the ID, activity ID is, you choose that and it gives you the next option and the next option. And then from there, you just say, I want to have an average or a total count or something like that. This is where you're able to make the data make sense and the data be valuable so you can go ahead and make choices based off of that data. So this was the experiment that I did inside of the cohort. I really wanted to just kind of dive in and see what type of data that I could get from an interactive video. Where are the different types of events that I could track? Well, I'm curious, what other events did I miss here? Did I miss something in the video if they played or paused? Did I miss something if you wanted to track when they, the volume turned up or something like that? Or what other things would you want to see in the interactive video? Go ahead and head on over to my YouTube channel and click that like button and subscribe to my channel, as well as hit the bell notification so you get notified of all future videos as they come out. But while you're there, also go down and make a comment down below and let me know your comments, your feedback on this. What else do you want to see in regards to xAPI and Storyline? So much possibility. We're just scratching the surface here. I'm creating a lot more videos that hopefully will be helpful for you. So make sure that you come back and check those out. And really my goal for this channel is to help you become the best instructional developer that you can be, and to take advantage of these industry-wide tools and be able to manipulate them and get the most out of them and stretch them as well. And hopefully you're able to find some good, helpful information on my resources. But that's all I have for today. So thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time.